This is Jed Distler, and welcome to the Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. Well, I hope it's friendly, at least friendly enough. I wrote the booklet notes to a release that came out on Deutsche Grammophon that contains the pianist Yuja Wang's 2022 Vienna recital. Because I wrote the notes, I couldn't review it anywhere, but I can certainly talk about this release. There are a few small details that need to be addressed because the recital on disc is billed as a concert from the Konzerthaus in Vienna, but the album deviates from the original program in several ways. For example, she played the Suite for Piano, Opus 25, by Arnold Schoenberg, but it's not on this disc. And that's a pity because I would have given anything to hear how such a gifted pianist as Yuja Wang would approach such repertoire. And the piece La Va Pièce from Iberia by Albaniaz actually closed the recital, but it appears at the halfway mark on this disc, as I will be talking about pretty soon. And she played 10 encores on the recital, but only 4 of them are represented on this disc. But still, the contents are typical of the kind of eclectic and wide-ranging programs that have generally made up Yuja Wang's solo releases. She doesn't seem to be a pianist from whom we'd expect, say, an all-Schumann disc or a disc of only Schubert sonatas. She likes to mix things up, and I think that's really great. So let's just go through this disc in running order. She opens with Malaga from Iberia of Albaniaz, and it's very beautifully played, very transparent. I really like this performance a lot. Next is the Scriabin Third Piano Sonata. You can't deny Yuja Wang's flair for tone color, and her soft playing is really gorgeous, and it really holds your attention. I am a little bothered by how she futzes around with the pulse in the allegretto, and the concluding presto con fuoco movement, to my ears, lacks something of a heroic edge. I usually prefer more driving and forthright interpretations that are more of one piece. Let's say the Vladimir Ashkenazy recording's a good example of what I mean, or the old Horowitz mono recording. She plays 2 preludes by Nikolai Kapustin, who was a composer who was famous for his written-out jazz. All of his compositions, or at least most of the compositions that are known, especially those for piano, sound like wonderful jazz improvisations, except they're through-composed. She plays these pieces very idiomatically. If I were her, I would give a little more oomph to the bass lines, because then that would be even more idiomatic. And then we have the La Va Pièce from Iberia, and it's a good performance, although I think some of the accents are a little fey and a little mincing. I guess the word cutesy comes to mind. But speaking of cute, I can kind of tolerate the playfulness and the little bits of overphrasing and attention-getting accents in the first movement of Beethoven's Sonata in E-flat, Opus 31, number 3. Yuja Wang's transitions in this movement are not exactly subtle, but she does play those rapid runs exactly in tempo without any adjustment, and that's rather thrilling to hear. Maybe it's less of an interpretation than a titillation. I don't know. Yuja Wang delights in distending some of the scherzo's dotted rhythms. And she actually starts this movement out at a faster tempo, and she very, very slightly slows down as the performance progresses. That's not a criticism, it's an observation. The minuet is appropriately grazioso, and there are a few little arch phrasings that draw more attention to Yuja Wang than Ludwig van Beethoven. Now, given her amazing virtuosity, I would have expected the presto con fuoco finale to go like a bat out of hell, but surprisingly, she really doesn't push the music. If you want to hear this movement foam at the mouth and go to the races, then you have to hear Sviatoslav Richter, especially in his live Prague recording from 1965. That's like a horse with blinders on. Whoa, baby. It's a great performance. Next, we have two etudes of Ligeti, the Autumn à Varsovie and L'Escalier du Diable. And Yuja Wang is an incredible Ligeti player. She gets through these etudes with absolutely no effort and with the utmost suppleness and multi-dimensional textural variety. She has played other Ligeti etudes on disc before, either in the studio or live, and all of these are absolutely world-class performances, and I hope that she will eventually get through all of the Ligeti etudes, because if she does and she maintains this level of playing, they would become the version of reference for sure. She also plays a piece called Danzon No. 2 by Arturo Marquez, and I don't find this piece very interesting at all. I do find interesting her interpretation of the C minor intermezzo, opus 117, No. 3, of Brahms, because on one hand, it's a serious and grounded performance, but then there are these romantic touches, such as arpeggiating chords that are not supposed to be arpeggiated, and there are diminuendos on certain phrases where Brahms did not write diminuendos. It's a more melody-oriented performance than, let's say, what you would hear from Emanuel Ax, who builds Brahms' textures from the bottom up with more attention to bass lines. But this kind of melody-oriented Brahms, I think, is very valid, and Vladimir Horowitz played Brahms this way. Horowitz did not play this piece, but he did record the Opus 117 No. 2. There's a live performance of that, and I would put Yuja Wang and Horowitz in the same category as far as the Brahms Opus 117. The final piece on the disc is the melody from Gluck's Orfeo et Euridice. It's in the famous Scambati transcription. You can't fault Yuja Wang's amazing ability to separate melody and accompaniment as if these elements are stemming from two different instruments. But I do find her tempo a little too fast, and there's kind of a restlessness about her phrasing. For instance, when the accompaniment continues without a melody over it, she tends to hustle the accompaniment along, like putting it a little bit on fast forward. And I think you need to be more patient and more expansive. Just listen to that old recording of this transcription by Egon Patry on 78s. You can find it reissued on the APR label. Listen to Egon Patry, and you are in a whole other world. What is that telephone doing ringing in the background? I'm not going to pick it up. I think it's a sales call. It's certainly not a listener of this podcast. Okay, please stop, telephone. Are you going to stop? Thank you. Anyway, on the whole, there are a lot of wonderful things about Yuja Wang and her Vienna recital. She still strikes me as an unpredictable musician, but as a pianist, she is abundantly gifted, and she can do whatever she wants at the piano. And when she's on her greatest form, she is just sensational. This is Jed Disler for The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. Thank you for tuning in, and I wish you happy listening.